October 7th, 2024, 3:17 a.m. The air in the Security Operations Center at one of America's largest telecommunications providers hung thick and cold, smelling faintly of stale coffee and ozone. Mark, a lead cybersecurity analyst, felt a bead of sweat trace a path down his temple. Though the room was chilled to an almost uncomfortable degree, his gaze was locked on his primary monitor, where a cascade of anomalous network traffic alerts pulsed with an ominous, sickly red. For weeks, they've been chasing ghosts, faint, almost imperceptible flickers of unauthorized activity, like static on an old radio. But tonight, the static had coalesced into a signal, clear and terrifying. His fingers, usually steady from years of navigating complex systems, trembled ever so slightly as he typed a command, his breath catching in his throat. The screen flickered, revealing an active, persistent connection to a command and control server registered under a fabricated U.S. persona deep within their core infrastructure. This wasn't a breach. It was an infestation. A shudder ran through him, a primal fear sizing his chest. The data wasn't just being accessed. It was being time-siphoned patiently, methodically, from the very systems designed for lawful intercepts, the FBI's wiretaps. The implications were like a sudden icy plunge. Every single phone call, every text message, every private communication under federal surveillance, potentially exposed. A foreign entity had been listening, not for days, but for times years. How much had they heard? What secrets had already been stolen? And more terrifyingly, what were they planning to do with America's most intimate whispers? To truly comprehend the scale of this digital invasion, we must rewind the clock, not to a single individual's twisted psyche, but to the calculating, unyielding ambition of a nation. This was not the work of a lone wolf hacker driven by ego or personal gain. This was the meticulous, state-sponsored operation of Typhoon, an Advanced Persistent Threat, or APT, group, directly tied to China's Ministry of State Security. Imagine a machine, vast and complex, fueled by an insatiable hunger for information. Its gears grinding silently in the shadows of geopolitical power. Its birth wasn't a moment, but an evolution, with roots tracing back to at least 2019, if not earlier, patiently building its digital arsenal. Typhoon is a manifestation of China's 100-year strategy, a long-term vision articulated by former NSA analyst Terry Dunlap. It's a strategy rooted in a deep-seated desire for global strategic advantage, for preeminence in technology, economy, and military might. For Beijing, information is the ultimate currency, and control over communications is the ultimate power. The driving forces behind Typhoon aren't personal fear or greed, but rather the collective paranoia of a state that perceives itself surrounded by rivals, constantly seeking to understand, influence, and ultimately dominate. They operate with a chilling detachment, their operatives often obscured behind layers of plausible deniability, working through seemingly legitimate pseudo-private contractors like ISPs, Onxin Information, Sichuan Juxine, and others. These aren't just IT firms, they are extensions of the state's intelligence apparatus. blurring the lines between corporate enterprise and espionage. These contractors provide the necessary technical expertise, the human resources, and the crucial obfuscation, allowing the MSS to execute its agenda while maintaining a veneer of innocence. The psychological landscape here is one of unrelenting strategic targeting. Salt Typhoon doesn't just randomly cast a wide net, it identifies critical infrastructure, key political figures, and sensitive intelligence operations, then moves with surgical precision. Their targets aren't chosen by chance. They are chosen because they hold pieces of a larger puzzle, crucial for counterintelligence, for understanding the geopolitical chess game, and for ensuring China's long-term dominance. This group embodies a relentless patience, a cold, unfeeling resolve that understands that the greatest victories are often won, not with brute force, but with the quiet accumulation of power over time, through the silent eavesdropping on the world's most guarded conversations. Their mission is clear to see without being seen, to hear without being heard, and to know without being known, shaping the future from the shadows. The campaign of Salt Typhoon was less a thunderclap and more a creeping fog, slowly, inexorably enveloping its prey. Their infiltration into America's telecom networks was a masterclass in patience and precision. Beginning as early as 2022, it started with reconnaissance, like a predator patiently stalking its quarry, mapping out vulnerabilities. The initial breach points were often the exposed nerve endings of any large network internet-facing devices: routers, firewalls, VPN concentrators. These were the digital gatekeepers connecting the telecom giants to the vast, wild expanse of the internet. Salt Typhoon didn't need to invent new weaknesses. They simply exploited the ones already present. The known vulnerabilities, or CVS, in commercially available software. They cast a wide net, performing automated scans for unpatched systems, diligently searching for any digital crack in the armor. Imagine a relentless, tireless bot, knocking on every digital door, checking every lock. When a weakness was found, they'd apply brute force tactics, trying endless combinations of usernames and passwords until one finally yielded, or, more insidiously, they'd deploy spear phishing campaigns, meticulously crafted emails designed to trick a highly privileged administrator into clicking a malicious link, unknowingly handing over the keys to the kingdom. Once inside, Salt Typhoon wasn't content with a fleeting glimpse. Their objective was long dwell footholds, permanent, covert residency. They deployed custom firmware implants, insidious pieces of code embedded deep within the hardware of critical network devices. These weren't mere software viruses that could be easily scanned and removed. These were modifications to the very operating system of the router itself, designed to survive system updates, making them nearly impossible to detect with standard tools. Think of it as a digital rootkit, burrowing deep into the bedrock of the network. These implants established encrypted command and control C2 channels, hidden pathways that allowed the attackers to communicate with their embedded tools. They didn't shout across the network, they whispered, camouflaging their traffic by mimicking legitimate network management communications, beaconing at irregular, unpredictable intervals. They became digital phantoms, blending into the background noise, feeding information back to their shadowy masters. In one horrifying instance, they compromised a single, highly privileged administrator account, which granted them access to over 100,000 routers within one telecom company's vast network. The scale of that access is staggering, painting a picture of an adversary with virtually unrestricted movement. They also employed living off the land techniques, using legitimate tools already present on the compromised systems. Why bring a new weapon when the victim has left the armory unlocked? This allowed them to avoid introducing new, easily detectable malware signatures. This methodical, unhurried, almost arrogant infiltration allowed Salt Typhoon to expand its reach, mapping the intricate digital topography of these networks, identifying the most valuable targets, and patiently, silently, preparing for the moment of truth. The target wasn't just data. It was the very fabric of America's digital communications, ripe for the plucking. The explosion was not a bomb blast, nor a digital firestorm that brought networks crashing down. It was far more insidious, a silent, pervasive theft of information that resonated with the force of a geopolitical earthquake. By late 2024, the full, horrifying scope of Salt Typhoon's penetration became undeniable. AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Lumen Technologies, Charter Communications, Consolidated Communications, and Windstream, at least 8, eventually 9, major U.S. carriers and over 200 targets in 80 countries worldwide were compromised. But the most chilling discovery, the true audacious move, was their deep access to the very systems designed for lawful intercept, the Kalia request infrastructure. Imagine the digital heart of a nation's surveillance, a place where the most sensitive intelligence operations converge, now silently under the control of a foreign adversary. The operators, faceless and nameless, in their clandestine outposts, watched with cold, clinical precision as the data flowed. They didn't need to hack individual phones. They had hacked the system times that monitored those phones. Terabytes of data were siphoned, not just from ordinary users. Over 1 million users' metadata, including phone numbers, communication timestamps, and IP addresses, vanished into the digital ether. This alone was a privacy nightmare, revealing patterns of life, connections, and habits. But for their high-value targets, they dove deeper. They accessed lawful intercept logs, peering into the very records of federal investigations, and in a move that sent chills through the halls of Washington, they extracted the content of phone calls and text messages, the communications of high-profile government officials, including former President Donald Trump, Senator J.D. Vance, and members of the Biden administration and Harris-Walz campaign were exposed. Imagine the utter devastation. Every word, every strategic discussion, every sensitive detail laid bare. Think of the adrenaline coursing through the veins of the Salt Typhoon operators, the quiet hum of their servers, the subtle click of their keyboards. Each interaction, a triumph of their relentless patience. This was their prize. The culmination of years of meticulous planning and infiltration. They meticulously sifted through network diagrams, administrator credentials, and even incident response playbooks, gaining blueprints to America's digital defenses and how it reacted to threats. The sheer volume of this pilfered intelligence was immeasurable. It provided Beijing with an unprecedented, real-time window into U.S. government activities, potentially compromising ongoing investigations, tipping off foreign operatives under surveillance, and offering invaluable insights into national security strategies. Senator Mark Warner didn't mince words. He called it the worst telecom hack in our nation's history. It wasn't about financial gain. It was about absolute knowledge, absolute control, and the silent assertion of power. The world would soon realize that the digital wires they trusted to carry their most private thoughts had become clandestine microphones for a foreign power. The cold dread that swept through Washington was palpable. The revelations of Salt Typhoon's deep, long-standing infiltration galvanized a furious response. The FBI and CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, launched an unprecedented, urgent hunt. This was no ordinary cleanup. It was a high-stakes game of digital cat and mouse, played across the very networks that formed America's backbone. Imagine an elite team of cybersecurity experts, their faces grim, working around the clock in a tense, claustrophobic war room. Their screens pulsed with complex network telemetry, their fingers flying across keyboards, searching for the phantom. The task was Herculean. Salt Typhoon was a master of evasion. They deployed sophisticated backdoors, including a new one dubbed Ghost Spider, and other modular tools, constantly shifting their tactics. But their most frustrating trick, they meticulously erased logs, every digital footprint, every breadcrumb that could lead investigators to their tracks was wiped clean. It was like trying to solve a crime scene after the perpetrator had bleached every surface. This deliberate obfuscation made it incredibly difficult to trace their activities, to understand the full scope of the compromise, and most critically, to guarantee their complete removal. The exhaustion etched on the faces of the cybersecurity defenders was profound. Long hours blurred into days, fueled by stale coffee and a burning sense of urgency. The White House, in a stark admission, conceded that by December 2024, none of the affected firms had fully removed the Chinese actors from these networks. The invaders were still embedded, still listening, still posing an ongoing risk. This wasn't a quick victory. It was a protracted, grinding battle against an invisible, relentless foe. The U.S. government issued urgent threat hunting guidance, a desperate plea for help, to telecom companies nationwide, detailing the specific tools and techniques Salt Typhoon employed. Experts tirelessly developed new detection methods, trying to catch the almost imperceptible digital whispers. The eventual containment, claimed by AT&T and Verizon by late December, was a tentative victory, not a conclusive defeat. The adversary had retreated, but the unsettling question remained: had they truly left, or simply melted back into the shadows, waiting for the opportune moment to strike again? The U.S. government did take action, sanctioning Sichuan Juxine Network Technology, a Chinese cybersecurity organization directly linked to Salt Typhoon. But China, with its characteristic denial, dismissed all allegations as unfounded smears. No arrests were made. No individuals faced prison sentences. The human faces of this digital war, the operators behind the keyboards, remained anonymous, untouchable. The legal consequences were diplomatic, economic, but not criminal against the perpetrators themselves. The hunt was far from over. It had merely entered a new, more clandestine phase. with lingering shadows of doubt hanging over America's digital defenses. By late December 2024, the major U.S. telecom providers, AT&T and Verizon, declared they had successfully contained Typhoon's activity, but the official statements carried an undertone of cautious optimism, a lingering shadow of doubt. Had they truly purged every digital parasite, every insidious rootkit, or had Typhoon simply retreated deeper into the labyrinthine crevices of the global network, waiting for the optimal moment to re-emerge? This wasn't merely a data breach. It was a profound, chilling reminder of the inherent vulnerabilities in our interconnected world. A stark exposure of how easily critical national infrastructure can become a weapon in the hands of a determined adversary. Senator Mark Warner's declaration that this was the worst telecom hack in our nation's history wasn't hyperbole. It was a sobering assessment of a wound inflicted on America's digital sovereignty. The U.S. government sanctioning of Chinese companies linked to Typhoon sent a clear message, but Beijing's unwavering denials ensured the diplomatic dance would continue. A Cold War fought in the silent expanse of cyberspace. No arrests, no prison sentences for the operators themselves. Only an unsettling anonymity that underscored the faceless nature of modern state-sponsored warfare. The true, terrifying twist remains the potential for future disruption. U.S. officials explicitly warned that Typhoon's persistent access wasn't solely for espionage. These long-dwell footholds could be activated for disruptive or destructive cyber attacks at a moment of crisis or conflict. Imagine the power, the ability to cripple communication, disrupt emergency services, or sow chaos across an entire nation, all from the shadows. The spy ring that hacked America's phones may be dormant, but the question isn't times. If times another digital typhoon will hit, but times when asterisk, and if America's digital defenses are truly ready for the next storm, or if the whispers will continue, unheard, until it's too late.